What's up, everybody? Gojo and Golic live from Radio Row in New Orleans. Great show coming your way right now. We have tons of awesome guests. Plus, last night was opening night. We have a lot of great sound bites from that one and some talk about NFL trade requests. Myles Garrett, Cooper Kupp going to be on the move. And Luka Doncic's dad has broken his silence. His translated interview. We will break it all down. 2 hours of Gojo and Golic right now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield. And because it's Super Bowl week and it is chaotic, we have Jason Fitz here joining us off the top of the show. As always, download, subscribe, rate, review us, leave us a 5-star rating, and check us out here all Super Bowl week, live Monday through Friday, still 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. Check out the Gojo and Golic YouTube channel as well, as we got plenty going on today. Dad, how are you feeling after night one? Are you okay?
Oh, I'm doing great. Got a little nice walk around Bourbon Street, the French Quarter. Had some nice local dinner.
Yeah, you had a po' boy. I ran into
had a po' boy, blackened redfish po' boy. It was phenomenal. Stopped by the casino, lost a little bit of money. And then this morning, here we are, kind of set up differently today. And Jason Fitz, who wasn't even supposed to be on, was just kind of roaming around the halls.
Just wanders
Just wandering onto the set.
I tried to drop both your names through security, too, and that didn't work. Like, I was like, I'm here with the Golics, and they just went, eh? So, but, I figured it out. Like, I did the worm and kind of snuck my way through, and then I just walked on set.
You could have brought some king cake with you.
Well, I mean, cake, maybe at the end of the week, Mike. It's a long week. Look, you got to just pace yourself through this week.
I know. It's my first one. I haven't done this before.
Yeah,
no, but I'm
never.
worried about you. I'm worried about you. See,
mansplaining the Super Bowl to Dad 30 years
This
in.
is what your dad has that the rest of us don't have. It's just unparalleled massive success. And when you have unparalleled massive success, I mean, there's a casino right here, there's fried food right here, and there's endless alcohol everywhere. I'm just worried about Friday. Like Friday, you are a zaddy, and I want you to be in full zaddy form on Friday. A zaddy daddy on Friday.
Wow.
That's fair.
Speaking of zaddies, we've got a show full of them coming up
we
today
do.
here.
Do we?
Trey Wingo and Marshall Newhouse. You know what? Now that I look at it, Trey Wingo and Marshall Newhouse, neither of those qualify. Sorry, guys. Stugots.
I mean, Stugots. I mean, you can't
doesn't.
pay Stugots and Zaddy in the same
do
sentence.
we have the same guest list?
Yeah. Gerald McCoy.
Oh, there you go.
There's his
There you
Hattie,
go.
former
Yahoo's
NFL
own.
defensive lineman,
Yeah.
Yahoo's very own,
Yeah.
McCoy and Van Noy, which everyone should check out there. He might qualify, and then Kansas City superfan and comedian Funny Marco going to join us at the end of the show. So wall to wall, wild stuff going on today.
If you have funny in your name, isn't that a lot of pressure?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you have to be funny.
I mean,
Is it
pressure makes
ironic
diamonds.
if you're not, which ultimately is sort of funny? Like, hey, I'm not funny, and people call me funny. Like when you call, like when you got a little.
Like if I were to call you big guy.
Yeah, or if I called you little guy. Like,
Yes,
there we go.
exactly.
Maybe it's ironic.
Right. It's like when people name a little dog Thor or something.
Yes.
It's funny.
See?
It's
It's funny. We're all loving it.
We're all getting
We're
it.
having a great time.
I don't think it'll be funny if Funny Marco's not funny, though.
That's fair.
I mean, he's
scared.
His title is comedian, so.
That
Yeah.
is true, in theory. So we will find out that mystery at the end of the show. At the beginning of the show, before we get to any of those illustrious guests here, guys, as we were at Super Bowl opening night last night, we'll have plenty from that, including Emerson Latzia almost assaulting Jordan Mailata with a microphone.
Yeah.
We'll have that coming up to you as we recap a lot of what we heard there. Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes both on the mic. Travis Kelce talking about his future beyond this season. We all got breaking news yesterday in the world of the NFL and their potential trades. They got jealous of what the NBA did on Monday, and so they decided, hey, we'll try some of this out. And so it starts with Cleveland Browns star pass rusher Myles Garrett declaring that he wants to go and be traded. He informed the Cleveland Browns he desires to be traded, talked about and sent a letter out to the fans of how much he's enjoyed being in Cleveland. And there had been a line from Andrew Berry, the GM of the Cleveland Browns, when asked about Myles Garrett's future at the end of the weekend, that said, we anticipate this being a one-way ticket from Cleveland to Canton.
Right.
And Myles Garrett references that in there and says, I never envisioned it being a one-way ticket from Cleveland to Canton. The competitor and me always wanted to go after that Super Bowl. So, Dad, listen, someone Cleveland native here obviously has seen what Myles Garrett's meant to that defense in Cleveland for so long. How realistic do you think it is that a guy with 3 years left on his deal, we can talk about some of the specifics of the money left in, is actually going to be able to force his way out of a team right now where he's really the only superstar?
And the power a football player has is much less than a power an NBA player has as far as negotiating where you want to go, being out, going to a certain team or whatever. So I think he could have a tough time doing this. All of it in the NFL depends on the stubbornness of the player. Does the stubbornness draw a line in the sand in indelible ink or in pencil, where it can be kind of moved or whatever, or fixed or whatever, or is it no, I'm not showing up, I'll take the fine. That dude's made enough money, because that's always a thing. You're not playing, you're not making any money. And it depends on, then Cleveland makes a choice. Do you have a guy like this sit, or do you get the haul that you can get for him? He has been in the league since, 17? He is 29 years old, but I think he's third on the list for consecutive seasons of 7 with double-digit sacks. John Randall is second, and the great Reggie White is first. So I don't know, Jason, the stick-to-itiveness he's going to have if Cleveland doesn't want to trade him.
That's the hard part, because there's literally nothing the Browns will get back that will make this loss feel right for Cleveland.
Right.
There's nothing that they'll get back that will immediately give them opportunity. And there are a limited, if his true goal is Super Bowls and we're just injecting true serum in everybody's veins, there are a limited number of teams that truly can look at him and say, hey, we can give you the Super Bowl. So now, if you're the Browns, even if we're talking about draft picks and a haul of draft picks, you're talking about a low draft pick in the first round. If you're getting a haul of first rounders, what kind of, like the 28th pick in the first round, Myles Garrett ain't coming out of that.
Well, I think that a lot of that depends, and a lot of the trade packages I've seen have looked like either multiple first rounders and players, first rounders, second rounders, a lot of different compensation that basically adds up to the value of 2+ first-round draft picks for a guy who, to the point about the salary cap portion of this year, dead cap money in 2025 would be $36 million for Cleveland. They can't split that up. He's due just under $20 million in 2025, $25 million in 2026. But my question to you guys is, should the Browns want to get this done? Because right now in the world they're living in, where they bet on, hey, Deshaun Watson was supposed to be your quarterback of the future, and that failed massively. And now in addition to the on-field stuff being bad, the off-field stuff being worse, and then the injuries that have popped up along the way, including an Achilles injury that he got surgery on after the season, your timeline's officially screwed. And does Myles Garrett any longer serve your current timeline? Or in a world where you're going to be looking for your next answer at quarterback, and it's probably going to be a young one with a lower likelihood of success than normal, do you say, let's start to load up on the rebuild now and get what we can for this guy at this point? While he is still covetous, 5th right now of the most sacks of any player in his first 8 seasons since 1982, do you want to recoup the most you can now and then go out and start spending this draft capital on rebuilding this roster that clearly missed its window?
I think that they will get a veteran quarterback to play. I don't think it'll be a rookie because I think they're still in win-now mode.
But what veteran quarterback is in win-now mode this offseason?
I
Maybe
don't
Sam
know.
Darnold if the Vikings don't franchise him?
That's
Maybe.
right.
Kevin Stefanski back calling plays again, too.
Boy, the domino effect of signing Deshaun Watson, if you end up losing Myles Garrett because of it, is just it's almost unrecoverable. I mean, and it's just, you look at ownership of Cleveland and what they did, and everybody shakes their head anyway. But I do my best if I'm Cleveland to try and talk Myles into staying. They're going to already make moves to try and turn it around. But the whole question is going to be a quarterback, Jason. It's going to be, what do we do a quarterback?
I mean, honestly, this is all, and I don't want to pile on here, but this all comes down to this is Deshaun Watson's fault at this point. If Deshaun Watson were to come back right now and play, that's not going to happen for the next year.
No.
So if you're Myles Garrett, you want out because they're not good enough. They're not good enough because Deshaun was never good enough with the Browns. That's part one of it. They can't trade him because they've got so much salary cap ramification tied in to Deshaun Watson. So even the fact that he's going to get stuck staying there is weirdly Deshaun Watson's fault.
This is Haslam's fault. This is Haslam's fault.
Haslam's, and listen,
it's
without
a Deshaun Watson
office.
transaction. Let me say that. That's better said.
But so let's go with this then, because I agree with you guys in that Cleveland should work hard to keep a player of this caliber. I do think there's something to be said for the fact that you need to look honestly at your timeline. And Andrew Berry seems like a smart guy by and large. Look honestly at your timeline and say, would it benefit us to really overhaul this thing while we've got the chance right now? And is he a part of that? If we are going to assume what?
Let me push back on that, though, because if I were coming on here right now and the breaking news was that my beloved Raiders had traded Max Crosby for a haul, would anybody doing radio today say, you know what? Smart move. The organization doesn't have a quarterback. They need a lot of pieces. They got to figure out a way to get the most out of their best player while they can. They can stack all that value together. Look at the draft capital. That's a smart move by the Raiders. No, every show I would turn on would say, oh, my God, how do you trade your best player?
Hang on to your best player.
You can't let him go. Like, I got to apply that same logic to the Browns. I hear you, but I don't think that we would have that same grace if we were sitting here talking about it.
I also don't think you should judge the quality of the decision on the noise that comes from the crowd. And you're also living in a world post-Luka Doncic, so this is going to feel like a drop in the bucket after all that, quite honestly. They did everyone a favor.
If they get anything in return for Myles Garrett, they're good. Yeah.
They'll be like, oh, wow.
That trade. Oh, my God, what a deal.
The Mavericks are like 2 firsts. You can do this? That's legal? All right, if we're going to suspend disbelief for a second, though, Dad, who at least should be picking up the phone? Like, who are the other teams that should
every AFC contender, Detroit, Philadelphia, Washington. The bummer.
Philadelphia, how much more do you need?
Hey.
I'm sorry.
All of it.
How much more do you need? And honestly, if the rest of the league, if y'all let Howie do this to you again, I don't want to hear it anymore. He can't keep getting away with this. You let him. If you let him pull that off, shame on you.
He would probably either restructure with Cleveland and get traded or get traded and then restructure, because the trading team, if everything was left to like it is, he'd make $20 million in 25 and $25 million in 26. But like I said, he'd probably restructure. But you would go to a contender, right? And Detroit. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson. Who else? I know they traded for an edge, but I mean, it's Myles Garrett. The worst situation would be for the team he goes to, that defensive line room and the locker room, because now you have Myles Garrett walking around with no shirt on, saying, "I've got to up my body game." Because that dude has the best body of a D lineman I've seen in a long time.
I mean, look, if I looked like that, I'd never wear it. I wouldn't wear clothes.
Never
I'd wear
wear
a loincloth everywhere.
Never wear a shirt.
I'd just be like, hey, I'm loincloth.
But
so if you had to whittle it down to like 2 or 3, though,
Detroit, Philly, and an AFC contender. I mean, Von Miller's probably done.
Yeah.
Buffalo.
Yeah.
So I would agree with all those. Deontay Lee over at The Athletic put out a great list of teams he thought would make sense. And honestly, one that jumped off the page to me of someone who should be banging on the table and given what their new head coach prioritizes and what you need to succeed in that division. If I'm the Chargers, man, let's start to go to work. I know wide receiver is probably the biggest need for you, but you just had Khalil Mack walk out the door. You need someone to cut the head off the snake in that division. Everyone in that division is trying to figure out how do we get to the Mahomes as early and often as possible. And so if you can get that dude there, that one, Green Bay or Detroit, and then I think Green Bay is the other one with a big name. Talked about this with Mina Kimes on her podcast the other week. That's a defense that got a boost with Jeff Hafley coming over this year. Doesn't have a real number one in terms of a pass rusher.
Rashawn Gary is kind of the guy.
He led the team in pressures, and I think was still only good for 44th most in the NFL. That's not going to cut it. Again, in a division defined by quality offense, like you're going to see from Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, from Detroit, now even post Ben Johnson. So I do think Green Bay would be another one of those teams it behooves to go out here and really swing hard.
I like your Chargers pick also because what they need aligns with what you can actually get in the draft often, right? Like the Chargers need offensive line help. They need wide receiver help. Those are two positions. The offensive line class in this year's draft looks deeper than some, and the wide receiver class is always deep, right? So if you're the Chargers and you got to give up a first-round draft pick, you're still going to be able, multiple first rounds, you're still going to be able to address your needs in the second round. You're still going to be able to address what you need to make that the offensive side click a little bit better. And you walk away with Myles Garrett. That's huge.
You have two positions. I think that if a team trades and gets or signs, because of this other guy I'm going to mention is a free agent, T. Higgins will help solve a wide receiver spot on a team, and Myles Garrett obviously will help solve an edge rusher on a team. We'll get to Cooper Kupp, who is a little more injured and such of what he would satisfy. But I mean, Myles Garrett and T. Higgins, and Myles Garrett especially, really obviously takes care of a need, and the Chargers is actually a really good need.
So ultimately, do either of you, any of you, Jesse, to think Myles Garrett actually gets moved?
No.
I don't think so.
I'll go yes, just because I'm a chaos agent, and I like when fun things happen for all of us here. Dad, you mentioned Cooper Kupp. Obviously, we'll hear more on Myles Garrett. We'll talk about that with Trey and Marshall and everyone else coming up on the show here. But Cooper Kupp, the next one on the block to potentially get moved here. Now, bit of a different situation here. Cooper Kupp, a little bit older. He had signed that 3-year extension after the 2021 season where he went crazy. He's through the first year of that extension now.
Right.
And coming up after that, really not much. It was a 3-year, $80 million extension. He's got big cap hits coming up, but only $5 million guaranteed next year. No guaranteed money in 2026. So, obviously, for the player, that doesn't feel good. And this was one, unlike Myles Garrett, who said, I want out of here. Cooper Kupp's statement yesterday said, I have been informed by the Rams that they are seeking to trade me. So he's getting it out there early, Dad, that this didn't come from me. I want to be around here, and he said as much after the season. What do you think the market looks like for this guy? As we mentioned, a little bit more banged up, and his best days probably behind him.
Well, I think the market, anytime a team says we want to trade you or a player says I want out, that hurts the value of the trade. Right now, for Myles Garrett, I mean.
So you're saying the Mavericks were right?
No. For Myles Garrett, you're going to get a haul for him if, in fact, they trade him. Cooper Kupp, the team wants to trade him, so the team is going to deal. He's a guy in the last, 3 years has played 33 games, so average 11 games a year. He's been nicked up. Puka Nacua has taken over as a number one receiver. So while he's had an incredible career, he's seen as a guy that's tough to finish a season, but certainly a worthy guy, a guy to count on. But I think it hurts the trade value by the team saying, yep, we're immediately trying to trade you. It's like, okay, all right. If a team that's looking for him is going to come in and just lowball, I guess you would anyway, but until you find the level you're going to trade for.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this leads to a cut, honestly. Like, we see this all the time. But the question we got to ask is the street cred of Sean McVay and how much this plays into the conversation. Because you've got one of the most respected offensive and wide receiver rooms that you're going to have, right? Like, everybody talks about Sean's ability as a coach to find any receiver, plug him in, and to get the most out of him. So if we're going to credit that every time they acquire and get the most out of a receiver, how much does the league look around and say, damn, if Sean McVay's willing to just let him walk, what's the real ceiling on the player at this point? Like, I look at some of these trade situations, cut situations, and say, do I believe that the team involved in the transaction is stupid? Like, there are certain teams that have lost all benefit of the doubt. The Rams aren't one of those. So if Sean McVay is letting a great wide receiver walk out of the room, I think the league sort of raises an eyebrow, and they're like, does that mean we should? Do we really want him?
And there's a big financial incentive for them to trade Cooper Kupp as opposed to cutting him, as opposed to letting him stick around there. ultimately, Dad, as far as partners for this one, it's another one we talk about some of the AFC contenders like Houston, who's probably going to lose Stephon Diggs to free agency this year, or might let him go after the injury, could get a veteran guy in there with C.J. Stroud. I think Buffalo, who tried this with Amari Cooper during the season, and that maybe didn't work out the way they want, you swap him out with an older guy if you're trying to keep costs down and assuming they're out of the T. Higgins sweepstakes because maybe they get priced out.
Who did he start his career with?
Cooper Kupp?
Jared Goff.
Yeah.
How about Detroit?
Oh, yeah.
How about Detroit loading up, not thinking that Kupp's the number one receiver anymore because of injuries? But, boy, if he ain't a 1, he's a 1A for sure. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have Jameson Williams. I mean, you are loading up.
That would have to be at the right price because I think you need O-line and defense.
Oh,
more than you
no,
need
definitely
that
would
in
be.
Detroit.
And would it be a trade or would it be a cut?
What about the Browns? I mean, again, I'll go back to Stefanski and I'll go back to the Browns have been trying to address veteran wide receiver for how many years? You got to build up the room if you don't have a quarterback or if you got a young guy. So Cooper Kupp would help.
There you go. The Rams acquire Myles Garrett. The Browns get Cooper Kupp.
Done.
And the Dallas
1 for 1.
Mavericks see nothing wrong with this. Coming up next, we'll take a look back on NFL's opening night and hear from two of the biggest and most important players involved in this weekend's game. Next on Gojo and Golic.
You're watching Super Week on DraftKings Network, presented by T-Mobile.
Coming up in about 15 minutes, that disembodied voice of Trey Wingo becomes Trey Wingo in human flesh. Him and Marshall Newhouse from
That
pregame
sounds
power.
so creepy.
That really did.
Yeah,
Is it worse
why?
than Zaddy comfort? Like, you want to rank the Zaddies by the end of the day? Like, figure out where everybody fits on the Zaddy list? And then,
Zaddy rankings.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Coming up, Fitz's Zaddy Power Rankings. The thing
Stugots
he's
is
most
last,
qualified.
by the way.
Yeah.
Very-
Wow. All right, there we
Might
go.
have been on the list.
Just giving away the list right before, just neutering the T's here.
Wow.
But I digress. So we do have that coming up. Looking forward to that. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield, Jason Fitz here at Radio Row, the site of Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. And last night is a tradition unlike any other. And God, I really wish it would be less like itself. Super Bowl opening night is a rat race for the ages. Dad conveniently did not show up when we had to go over there last night. Amazing stuff from you.
I had to work at the last 2 years for Westwood One, where we got to interview the players before they went out into the horde, and I'm not doing Westwood One this year, so I let you take it.
Senior's I don't do that crap.
Yeah. What is this poor person stuff?
What is this walking around with a microphone
Disgusting.
trying to get interviews? Stop it.
I would never.
Well, thankfully, one of us did. Go over to Media Night last night. Check it out. All of the players from both teams getting a chance to sit in front of the media, answer the tough questions. And so we decided to go and do big journalist work and ask the most important question in sports right now to some of the guys getting ready to play in Super Bowl 59. Take a listen.
Super Bowl week got kind of hijacked by the NBA yesterday. What'd you think when you saw Luka Doncic got traded to the Lakers?
It was crazy, man. I don't watch a lot of basketball, but just knowing how great and special of a player Luka is, for him to leave and go to another organization is kind of crazy. But we'll see how him and LeBron look together.
I thought it was fake. I didn't think it was real. I thought it was Centel.
I thought maybe the Mavs GM was off something. You know, I mean, seriously.
Shams was getting hacked.
Fourth quarter's crazy.
Somebody just walked by and, just said it to us and walked off. Luka went to L.A. I was like,
all right, I'm a Lakers fan.
okay.
But I stay in Dallas, so I support Dallas, and so I never seen that coming or would think that would happen.
I verified it. I was like, man, this doesn't make any sense.
I thought Luka was going to end his career in a Mavs uniform. But I love it for LeBron, baby.
Luka, he like LeBron Jr. He's just not as athletic. They're going to be hell to deal with.
As a Dallas fan, it hurts me, but I'm happy for him that he's going to be able to go out there and be in LA and get to try to achieve his dream of winning a championship.
You just don't see that very often. You try to draw a comparison in the NFL. It's like I've seen a few tweets out like Lamar and Joe getting traded.
What would the NFL version of that trade be?
I don't even want to say.
Okay.
Don't even make that happen.
All right, perfect.
Don't do that.
I know exactly what you're thinking.
Patrick Mahomes, probably. If I saw that, I'd be like, yeah, that's fake.
Saquon got traded. That was surprising.
Nick Bosa, somebody that's a franchise player and send him to another team.
The future will tell us who wins that trade, but it seems like the Lakers got a cornerstone piece, and obviously we know the defensive presence and the scoring presence that Anthony Davis is. I think he'll be good for Dallas, so we'll see.
Awesome stuff. Know a thing or two about defensive presence, so I appreciate it. Good to see you, Drew. Good luck, man.
Undefeated Super Bowl or football players love talking about basketball.
Oh my gosh! And the only question to really ask, right? We got plenty of time for the game, but this is the biggest trade in NBA history. And you're right, NFL players love talking basketball.
I love that everybody has such hot takes on all of this still 48 hours later, and we won't know the answer. Like the one guy that said we're not going to know for a long time. That's the real truth. It's going to take a minute to figure this out.
And the real immediate truth is what Trey Smith said. I thought it was fake.
Yes.
Everybody thought it was fake. Nobody would believe it. Everybody thought, the accounts got hacked and people are just making stuff up.
There's got to be a solution to that in the future. I don't even, because even if Shams comes out and tweets, this is real, we're still going to be like, well, that means it's fake.
Of course. That's the first thing you do if it was fake.
There was a solution to that in the version of that website that used to exist.
Mark.
Where you had a blue check mark that couldn't be paid for by a bunch of random people. But someone decided that system didn't work and wanted to sow seeds of anarchy in the entire information process. But I digress. The funniest part to me in all of this was that clearly a lot of the guys in the Chiefs knew exactly who the play. Although I think Mahomes is actually a bad comp for this because Mahomes has won the championships. He's on the mountaintop.
Right.
That's a lot different than someone in the situation that Luka Doncic is in. But to Fitz's point about these guys in the explosive parts of this locker room argument, I've seen plenty of people say, hey, we won't know about this till the fun of sports is arguing about this. The reason I wanted to ask all these guys this outside of being a bleep poster myself is that I remember being in locker rooms and you could just walk by guys in 2010, 2011, just walk by guys in the locker room, mention Jordan and LeBron, and then toss the match away like you were in an action movie and listen to the explosion behind you of arguing that would go on for the next 45 minutes to an hour because every football player thinks they're a great basketball player, and we all, like everyone else in the world, like all the fans out there, think we know everything about how this is going to play out. So no shortage of that at Super Bowl opening night.
Yeah, look, you're 1,000% right. I would just remind all the LeBron haters that in 30 years when they're sitting around listening to their grandkids talk, and they're talking about whoever the hottest player is of that generation, they're going to be like, I saw LeBron play. Like, all of this hate will eventually form its way into love. So.
Oh, yeah, it's always after the fact.
Yeah,
right
100%.
after they're gone. But, yeah, I think the Luka comparison, because of not winning a championship but being close but being MVP level, is Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, he's
right.
probably the best one.
That's because you're right. Mahomes has a plethora of rings already and all the success in the world and is walking into the Hall of Fame. Lamar Jackson is looking for that championship like Luka.
Who's the Anthony Davis then? Like, who's the
best comp I saw for that, Nick Wright at Fox said this would be like if you had traded Josh Allen after the 13-second game, his best playoff run statistically for Matthew Stafford. Another very accomplished player, won a championship, has played at a high level, but maybe not ability-wise or timeline-wise the equal.
Maybe if you're talking about offense, Lamar, defense, maybe it's Lamar from Myles Garrett.
There we go.
There we go.
See? That's how you combine all of the current events going on.
There you go.
Topic.
There you go.
Well, speaking of opening night, though, this was not without its mistakes because this is a volume shooting process. We're trying to go and get shots up as best we can. Talk to some of these guys. We got some of them you saw were down around in the scrum with everyone else, but there were a lot of the big-time important players up at the podium, including Eagles offensive tackle Jordan Mailata. And our own Emerson Lazio is out there doing some work that you'll see on the pregame power-up later in the week. And Emerson and Jordan, let's just say, weren't on the same page. Take a look at my favorite interaction for opening night.
Yeah. Award winner now. Jordan, who's the last guy in that locker room you'd want dating your sister?
Oh, pardon my language. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Caught me off guard. Last person in the locker room I'd want dating my sister.
All right, CJ,
Like just throwing the microphone at him. First off, that question usually either has one immediate answer or in that case, you trying not to put somebody on blast, which I appreciate.
Right.
But either way, Emerson just deciding to heave microphones at guys that have an important game coming up.
I also thought, like, if you're going to do that, it should be one of those mini mics, right? Because those are going around. The mini mics can't really cause any damage. But he just chucked a full-blown microphone at him.
Look, it's dog-eat-dog at media days, right? Like, you're just trying to get the question answered. You worked your hardest to get up to the front of that scrum, whatever it takes to get answered. I think we should do more of this. Like, hey, you want your mic, you just you chuck it at somebody.
In watching it, I've always been uncomfortable in somebody finally getting a question in, and it's a dumb question.
Yeah.
It's like you waited your turn, or you shouted in, or you tried to get your question in, you got it in, and everyone looked at you like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
I did.
This is your shot.
How do you think I felt getting up to the scrum with Devonta Smith and immediately asking him about Luka Doncic? Do you think I felt great?
Yeah.
Well, no, Luka's a good question. That's a good question. The problem you had is you were associated with Emerson. I mean, that's every time Emerson goes to do something, I would be holding my breath whether I would be thrown out of the place.
I had gotten at the front of one of those scrums in front of Harbaugh at the national championship game last year when Michigan was there. And I remember all of us that were right at the front of the podium had spent, like, I spent minutes. I don't remember what the question I was going to ask was, but I'd gone over it. I'd made sure that I knew exactly how I was going to ask it so that I made the most of my time. And I'll never forget, Heather Dinich walks up, who's the ultimate professional. She walks up the last second, and they knew she was coming, and she had an important thing.
Right.
So she came up, and I don't even remember what her question was. I just remember that she grabbed the mic and off the fly asked the most succinct, perfect question I'd ever heard, and she pinned Harbaugh into having to answer it. And I looked at it, I was like, holy, you know what? That is a level of – and then he skated around the question. So I was like, I learned two things here. What it's like to be a professional and that Harbaugh's not going to answer anything because if he figured out how to get around that. But I looked at that, I was like, even when I thought my question was smart, then I watched Dinich work.
Yeah, there's a couple. There's Heather Dinich, there's Holly Rowe, who are just incredible question askers.
And to your point, a lot of it cannot matter if your subject doesn't want to cooperate.
That's exactly right.
Speaking of questions that needed important answers, last night Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, both in attendance, obviously, at media night, both will play an important part of this game, and both got asked about what it's like being back on this stage after a game against the Chiefs 2 years ago. Listen to this.
Just finding a way to finish. You know, you sacrifice a lot, you put a lot in. Work really hard to have this opportunity. And so to do it and be back 2 times out of 4 years starting this is very special. And the goal is to finish.
We came back from Phoenix of, hey, what will we do different? Oh, we do this different. And so there's a handful of things, based off of walkthrough, and practice and meals that we're doing a little bit different this time to try to give us ourselves the best chance to win.
So certainly that's a big part of it. Experience is the ultimate teacher. Fitz, I saw you nodding when Nick was talking.
What could he be talking about? Walkthrough?
I mean, but that's one thing that last year, talking to some of the Chiefs players, they pointed out at media days that they've done this so many times that they understand exactly how to change the routine of the week. They understand when their practices are going to be. They understand when their meetings are going to be. They understand when the interviews are going to be. They shift everything. Even knowing how to manage a longer halftime is something that Andy Reid has become so accustomed to that they can pattern their entire week. I think it's a huge advantage for the Chiefs having been here so many times.
Well, you talk about continuity, and that's what every player, as I said, you live on an itinerary. It's an itinerary life, and it gets changed during the Super Bowl. So who can adjust the best to it? Now, Philly was here just a couple of years ago, so it's not like they don't have any practice at all. But for the Chiefs, it's just another postseason. It's just we're prepping for another game. Oh, yeah, it happens to be the Super Bowl, but we've done this umpteen times.
I think one of the funniest things I heard yesterday in talking to Trey Smith for that video, asked him what he's learned from being here 3 times and what that's taught him. And he goes, the number one thing you have to remember is there's a game at the end of all of this. He's like, it's easy to get lost in the sauce of this couple of week lead up, and especially when you got on site here of all the other things. And so, Fitz, to your point, I think for both of these teams, because the Eagles' core of their roster was here 2 years ago, because this Chiefs team is here every year, you do have 2 teams that aren't going to be as distracted by everything else that comes with this. And so I do think it gives us a great opportunity for an awesome football game, because preparation and familiarity are all going to be boxes easily checked by these teams.
I keep going back to, though, not pressure, because we talk so much about pressure. I want to think about the opposite, the absence of pressure. Like, you guys have been doing this, we've been doing this profession forever. But I remember one of my first ESPN radio shows at the time, a guest didn't show up. And it was one of the first times I'd ever done any national radio. And I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't know what to do. Like, all of a sudden, I found myself live on air, and I was like, oh, my God. What do we do? How do we veer through this? And at the end of that segment, I remember thinking, man, there's so much I don't know about this business yet. Like, in music, hell, when we were playing a show in Arizona once with the band, it got so hot that the sound system shut down in the middle of a concert. And I was so experienced that I immediately looked at everybody. I'm like, I know what to do, where to go, how to do it. Absence of pressure when you've done something a million times. I think part of this, instead of focusing on who handles the pressure more, I think sometimes what we have to realize with Kansas City is that there's simply an absence of pressure that comes with experience. Now, if somebody throws a microphone in front of any of our faces and says, talk about Myles Garrett, it's the easiest thing in the world. But the first time you do it, the second time you do it, it's not. I think absence of pressure is a key in this game for Kansas City.
I think one of the big, in talking, now I never got to a Super Bowl, but in talking to guys who did, the line is, the quicker it becomes a normal game, the better. That's when you settle in. And because of all the pregame hype, all that goes into it, as Jordan Mailata said, or Trey Smith said, there's a game at the end of this. So the sooner you get into your game mode, the better off you are. Well, these 2 teams, I don't think there's any worry at all about them getting into game mode. So I think you can take that element out.
I do think the other different part, because while I didn't play in a Super Bowl, playing in a national championship and being the team that hadn't been there before, also avoiding that quicksand feeling when the first mistake does happen.
Right.
Because for Alabama, who we played, or in Kansas City, who's already won these things, like the Eagles have been here, the Chiefs have won here, and so when something bad happens, they know, hey, we can overcome this. There's a long game to go. For guys that are here for their first time, for guys that haven't won it and want to, there is that pressure that creeps in of, oh, this is my opportunity. I don't know if I'll get back here. We're blowing it. What's happening? And if that starts to snowball on the side that's trying earnestly to get over a hump they haven't yet, that's when I'm going to be interested to see how much that experience and continuity for Kansas City takes
You guys
over.
came back in that. Oh, no, you didn't.
Something like that. We're going to come back with new people up here. Trey Wingo, Marshall Newhouse, next on Gojo and Golic.
You're watching Super Week on DraftKings Network, presented by T-Mobile.
All right, welcome back. Mike Golic Jr. here at Radio Row. It's Gojo and Golic at the site of Super Bowl 59 here in New Orleans. And I am joined on set still by my father, Mike Golic Sr. Thank you to Jason Fitz for stopping by before. But that voice talking there is now sitting right here.
Hey.
Trey Wingo, Marshall Newhouse, kind enough to join us here.
What's happening,
You'll see the boys in the pregame power-up coming up here. How we doing, fellas?
Doing well, doing well.
Wonderful. It's
Got
nice
out
to be here.
Got out last night and we'll explore the city and ready to roll, I guess.
As I said about New Orleans, when we talk about venues, I like New Orleans as one of the best because, as we all know, it's about us.
Correct.
Correct. How is the week going to affect us?
Correct.
And it's easy to get around. It's easy to walk.
Indianapolis was one of the greatest Super Bowl cities.
Well, we got
all
lucky
time.
because of the weather. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
but everything was right there.
Yes, it was.
And then with his Super Bowl 45 was in Dallas. That was the worst.
That was horrible.
That ice storm everywhere. It was
historically
awful.
worse. You're telling me you two aren't riding Lime scooters around? Is that what's going on?
Oh my God, that's an accident waiting.
My God, yeah, no, terrified. Please, Dad, for the love of God, we need to keep you far, far away from that right now. But it is a city. I know. I saw Roger Goodell yesterday giving his press conference and talking about everything here, and mentioned why New Orleans is such a great host city for all this. And I've said to other people, some of the cities you mentioned there, they do a great job, but the Super Bowl takes over those cities.
Correct.
It envelopes them. This one, New Orleans absorbs the Super Bowl. Las Vegas last year absorbs it because these cities do events at such a high level. So good to be back here in New Orleans. Trey mentioned it. Marshall, you're the only one of us that's been through this process as a player, going through this and winning a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers.
Long time ago. Thank
wow,
you,
they're trying to do the
wow. You see how happy
everybody does it to me.
Listen, it's Tuesday, sir. Can we just calm down?
Listen, it was so long ago. That's when Aaron Rodgers won playoff games.
Yeah,
so, that's what that was.
Wow.
Is it too soon?
Is it too soon? We're doing AR shots this morning here. Cafecito Trey is back at Radio Row. But, Marshall, you know what? It is Tuesday of this week, and so going back to that time period and going through a process that I'm sure looks a lot different now because everything continues to grow around this game. But what's it like as a player going through the middle portion of a week with all these abnormalities when you're trying to stick true to the schedule?
Yeah, well, usually, they spend the first week of that 2-week gap at home and just trying to keep it as normal possible. That's when the hard practice. You're actually practicing your hitting. When I was playing, we were full pads, and guys didn't love it, but it was like we've got to get something in because once you get to the city, it's chaos. You're at the event last night. There's lights everywhere. There's people everywhere. Now there's security everywhere, and so most of that preparation is done the week before in your hometown. So once you get here, guys I think will get a little release to kind of go to dinner a couple times. Things will be a little lax until they're like downhill, which I think will be like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, getting serious for the game. And so it's upheaval a little bit, but they normalize as much of the front end so that this part is less of a distraction.
And Trey, we were just talking about it last segment. For these two teams, especially Kansas City, the familiarity of of what's known and what's going to happen. And as Mike, you mentioned, the core of the Eagles was basically the same since 2 years ago. So there's less worry of, oh my God, the bright light's getting to us.
Yeah, it is funny though. Like it's, we talk about during the run up to the draft industrial complex, and all the stuff and the combines and the pro days, and we're sort of there with Super Bowl. Like I was watching another network who I will not mention this morning, and one of the questions they asked one of the reporters here was, "Okay, was there a change in tone from the Eagles the way they consumed their opening night as opposed to the Chiefs, as if how you purport yourself on opening night is going to have some massive influence on the outcome of the game."
I do think that's one of the indictments of this is a game where we're kind of struggling to find a ton of juice in terms of the early week buzz because we're so familiar with everybody involved, because this is a rematch that we just saw 2 years ago, because it's the second rematch we've seen in the last 5 years involving the Kansas City Chiefs. So I do feel like all that exposure kind of has us grasping at straws, so much so that I want to get to this, because one of the interesting storylines that started to dominate this run for the Kansas City Chiefs has been officiating. And Roger Goodell got asked about the refs at opening night last night, or in the lead-up, I should say, yesterday, and here's what he had to say on the subject. Never mind. We don't have that sound.
Okay.
I was told we do.
He didn't agree with it.
He didn't agree with it. And I saw Travis Kelce with some pretty strong remarks on that last night, too, basically saying, he's like, I don't know why you guys are hung up on this right now. So, Trey, I'd start with you. Why do you think now officiating has become so the focus with this team in the midst of a run where they might do something we've never seen in the Super Bowl era?
Well, first of all, they've already done two things we've never seen. They're the first back-to-back champs to make it back here.
Right.
And this is their fifth Super Bowl in 6 years. That's never happened before. The Steelers went to 4 and 6, but nobody's gone to the Super Bowl 5 times in 6 seasons. And I think that's the reason. They don't like to see these guys win all the time, so they're trying to figure. We did the same thing with the Patriots. Oh, they're cheating. They're doing this. Some of that was true. Some of that was true. Yeah. Some of that was true. But like the tinfoil conspiracy theorists about the Chiefs and the refs, it drives me a little crazy. Like, I get it. The two penalties against the Texans, one of them, if you put your face mask on his head, it's going to get called all the time. And our good friend Adam Schefter retweeted something about in the last 2 playoff runs, or the middle of their 8-game playoff streak, roughing the passer calls against the Chiefs, 6. Roughing the passer calls against the opponents, 0. Okay, but if you put out those numbers like that without context, you're assuming that there were roughing the passers that weren't called, and these shouldn't have been penalties. We all saw the AFC Championship game a year ago. The Ravens hit Patrick Mahomes in the head 3 times. It was clear and obvious, and nobody said a word about it. But now, because of what happened in the Texans game, well, that had to be tainted, and this had to be that. And it just becomes this self-fulfilling mushroom of ridiculousness at some
Marshall,
point.
I think for years, great players get calls.
Thank you.
Right? I mean, that's nothing new.
Yeah.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes with the late slide, but it was Mahomes. Yeah. Mahomes dancing like he was going to come back in bounds and not go out of bounds. It was Patrick Mahomes. Now, he didn't get the call on that.
Right.
I thought I think roughing the passer should be reviewable because I think some of the calls are ridiculous. But this is more about great players getting calls, and Kansas City just happens to be a great team for a number of years.
Listen, multiple things can be true. I kind of liken it to
everybody struggles with that concept.
I know.
Yeah. It's an impossibility for so many people that two things can be true at the same time.
I liken it to when an NBA superstar comes into the zone. They say you've got to start making the refs make the call.
Yes.
And Patrick Mahomes has figured out you can call it flopping, but he's going to the edge of the rule. Yep. He's making the defense be disciplined, and he's making the ref make the call. And I don't blame him for it one bit, ultimately. If you're a defender, I mean, who's the defensive – I don't know if it's D'Amico, but someone said, hey, if Patrick Mahomes runs, we're going to hit him. I'm
treat him like a running
listen,
back.
Chase him down, but no, treat him with kid gloves unless you think you can knock him out of the game, because if you do anything close to the sideline, anything close to his head, they've already shown that any quarterback, especially a guy of that caliber, A, he's going to sell it, and B, they're going to call. Like, why would you even put your guys in that position?
I think it is great to remind people that's a learned skill.
Yeah, correct.
Like, I remember being a young player coming out of college, and you're hearing all these things that great center. I played center. Great centers doing the league. How guys are reading safety shells to figure out where to ID the mic, and they're getting all these tells on where the blitz come from. I'm like, I'm trying to figure out where the 3 technique is going to be because I need to get this done. You don't have the ability to think about that higher level stuff. Patrick Mahomes is now at that point in his career. This is a guy that we remember hearing on the shop was like, I didn't know what the nickel was early on in my career. I was figuring out all this other stuff, and now he's at this point where I've got all the rest of that stuff mastered to such a level I can focus on trying to find these areas in the margins where I can get wins.
I think, Marshall, what you said, and I said it before as well, it's not Mahomes' fault.
No.
Mahomes is playing the game, and he's what you said. He's forcing the officials to make the calls, and the officials are going to caution on the side of injury, and B, they're going to caution on the side of great player.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
But I've been hearing this conversation, and I think I have to change my opinion a little bit. I think you're right. I think we have seen this team get favorable treatment. I mean, I've never seen a playoff game where a ref came over to the bench to talk to the quarterback on the sideline. Oh, wait, that was Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. I've never seen a rule change because of one team didn't get a possession over. Oh, wait, that was the Buffalo Bills. So, we could do this all you want. You know what I mean?
It's the Chiefs' fault for winning that game, though, and putting them in that position where they have to do that.
How dare they? How dare they?
It is funny. So we have spent a lot of time, obviously, and understandably, talking about the Chiefs on the cusp of this greatness. I've been fascinated. I'm wondering about you guys, the conversation around Jalen Hurts going into the Super Bowl, because the mound of evidence that we've seen from this season, both in terms of what the Eagles have decided their best path to winning is handing Saquon the ball, working behind that offensive line and with that defense, indicates, hey, we've got less confidence in our quarterback than we do in that area of the game. But it's turned into, it feels like a lot of doubt surrounding Jalen Hurts' ability to lead them in this game, as if he didn't do what he did 2 years ago in the Super Bowl. So, Trey, where are you at on what you believe Jalen Hurts' role with this Philadelphia team is?
Well, you're right. This year they've made a conscious effort, because Saquon had the season he had, that we're going down that road. But Jalen Hurts was the best player on the field in Super Bowl 57.
Yes, he was.
We always, except for 1 year in Super Bowl 5, we default to the winning team has to have the MVP. Jalen Hurts was the best player on the field in Super Bowl 57. And, if the Eagles win, he'll join Joe Burrow and Tom Brady as the only other opposing quarterbacks to claim a playoff victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's interesting, because after that game, they gave him the $250 million contract, and they clearly have better receivers than the Chiefs and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So I think there's a lot on the line here for Jalen and how he's going to be perceived if he can pull this off.
Marshall, was it fair to say that quarterback is the only position on offense where the Chiefs are better than the Eagles?
Yeah. I mean, that was pretty objectively true. And I think the Chiefs, they wouldn't admit it, but I think they understand where they are, and that's what makes what they do so much more impressive, is that there are times where they have a talent gap. I mean, literally, their starting guard is playing left tackle right now, and so they understand that.
By the way, that's an unbelievable thing that everybody just glosses over.
It's an
I was
amazing
gonna say, as someone that lived on the edge.
Yeah. That's a crazy swap. You normally see tackles go into guard, later in the career. But him doing that on the fly, and then them trusting him enough, more so than DJ Humphries, says a whole lot about Joe. I played with Joe in New England. He's an incredible player, and that's just something they were like, hey, we're going to go with this. We've had 2 weeks. We had after the AFC Championship, we had a chance to pivot. They're like, no, we trust him enough, which says immensely things about him.
You mentioned you were with Joe. What sets him apart? What's made him such a great player that allows him to have the ability to do that?
Well, I mean, on the physical stuff, his play strength and his versatility, but he's just super smart, and he's strong. He's strong like bull. He sat inside at guard and moved some 320, 30-pound guys. He's gonna be tested less from a physical standpoint on the edge. Eagles' defensive ends aren't great, but he absolutely is just a strong, really, really smart guy. I mean, New England seems to only, for a long time, only drafted those kind of guys. So, and on the Jalen Hurts thing, it's not, I think we got to continue to give Howie Roseman his flowers.
Sure.
It is not his fault that he's driving a Ferrari. Now, is he Mario Andretti, or is he driving Miss Daisy? I think he's somewhere closer to Andretti, but it's not his fault.
Yeah.
They have an incredible team, and there's no reason for him to force it. So they're like, hey, we have these guys on the edge. If you want to glow guys in the box, throw the one-on-one. If they want to back up and play cover 2 shell, Saquon, run it 30 times a game, and let's lead ourselves to prominence. Why are we making this harder than it has to be?
Yeah, and Howie Roseman will get Executive of the Year when they trade for Myles Garrett.
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to fleece somebody. He's going to fleece him somehow. I can feel it.
But to your point, I think we can make an argument that in every Super Bowl the Chiefs have played in, the other team had the better roster.
Yeah.
In every one. Both times in the 90s, you go 1 through 53, you would take them. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo to Patrick is different. Same thing with Brock Purdy. Every time they've played, I think that the other team has had a better roster 1 through 53. They have Mahomes, they have Andy Reid, and they have this innate ability in belief that they're just going to get it done.
Yeah.
17 straight one-possession games, 9 straight playoff wins. The entire 2022 draft class of the Chiefs does not know what a playoff loss feels like. That's an insane
It's like
thing.
Alabama college stats
Correct.
about
wild,
guys in the league that's
It
supposed
is.
to have incentivized parity more than any league on earth.
And we talk about Pat Mahomes. Andy Reid is going to be the all-time winningest playoff coach, winning coach, going to pass Belichick. And I said he's going to pass Shula. He's going to be the one to pass Shula. He needs 48 games.
You can make an objectively strong argument that Andy Reid is a more versatile winner in the NFL than Bill Belichick. Go look at Bill's record with and without Tom Brady.
Yep.
And then go look at Andy Reid, winningest coach in the Eagles' history,
right?
Winningest coach in he's won with every quarterback he's got.
Yep.
But will Andy Reid be able to say that he led the North Carolina Tar Heels to an ACC championship and a college football playoff berth? I think not.
Go beat Duke, as Bill said.
His first words as a baby, wrapped and swaddled in the hospital.
Exactly,
said,
in
"Beat
powder
Duke."
blue.
Yeah.
I love watching Bill put the smile on for these recruit visits. I'm like, who are we? Who is it?
We really want you here.
Recipes.
We really want you here. We're very excited about it.
Pre-game power-up coming up this week from Radio Row here at the Super Bowl. Trey Marshall, thanks fellas.
Guys.
Appreciate
You got it, boys.
Welcome back to Gojo and Golic. Devin Booker placed himself in rare air last night. He became the Phoenix Suns' all-time leading scorer Monday night against the Portland Trail Blazers, breaking Walter Davis's franchise record, 15,666. Booker surpassed Davis on a three-pointer with 7:34 remaining in the third quarter. He reached the milestone in his 10th season. Very impressive 642nd game for the Suns. He finished with 34 points, giving him 15,678 for his career. He said, "I take it seriously putting Phoenix across my chest, and we take it very seriously being here on Radio Row." We're going to have Stugots joining us live next.
It's Tuesday. It's hour number 2. We are back here at Radio Row, the site of Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. It's Gojo and Golic, Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Jesse Cofield, and a winded Stugots joining us for the Dan Levin
Well, I just
show.
did a lap around Radio Row. I had to say hi to a bunch of people. I'm out of shape. Thank God you guys had steps. I mean, it's Super Bowl week, boys.
We thought you were hitting a heater somewhere.
I had two on the way over.
I was like, I can smell them.
I was going to say, when it turned bad for you, when they made a lot of no smoking areas and you had to really go far away to get a heater in.
This is not Las Vegas. Las Vegas. So I told Billy, I walked so far to go outside to have a cigarette in Las Vegas, I told Billy I was going to have two. Every single time I left. So Billy would set the clock to like 40 minutes. He's like, all right, Stu left. He's going to have two. It's going to take him 20 to get there. He'll rifle down 5, and then he usually walks a little bit faster on the way back because he knows I need him. So.
See, as what you guys haven't known this entire time, and the reason that everything happened this weekend did is because Stugots has actually been moonlighting as Luka Doncic's personal trainer for all these years. And so this is the exercise routine that's been getting him ready for these deep postseason runs. So, Stugots, how's it feel? The Super Bowl is, I mean, it's your Super Bowl. being here at Radio Row is the real Super Bowl for you.
Yes.
So what's the lay of the land looking like this week for what is, objectively, as a sports talk radio junkie your entire life, being back in your nirvana here?
We are sitting right across from what is some sort of bounty challenge where we're going to throw two, like, bounty rolls
for
the 250, 500. This is what Radio Row and Super Bowl week is all about. I was on a plane yesterday with Jimmy Johnson. I ran into Sean Merriman at the airport. I walked into Eric Spitz, a name that no one knows, but he is a legend in this industry. I saw him this morning on the way in, and so I'm in heaven. This is my home. This is my home away from home, and quite frankly, I wish it was my home.
But But the one thing,
I'm sure Abby does too.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
There's a reason she's not here.
Boy, you are not kidding. It's her week of rest.
Thank you, Mike.
Media nights have changed, though. Remember, you used to have women going in wedding gowns and all kind of people trying to bring the attention in. Was there any of that last night?
No, there was a guy walking around, just one guy, and I only saw him for a brief second, but he had like the Hangover-style Baby Bjorn on with a doll, like a baby doll. In the front. Very off-putting. Do not know what the bit was, but saw that. A couple guys in luchador masks, but for the most part, it has kind of lost its
kind of calmed
down.
Yeah.
Wonder why.
I don't know. It's a damn shame to see us losing recipes like that. But Stugots, as we've gotten here this week, obviously we'll get to some stuff with the game with you.
It's a good question. We should have explored that a little bit
why?
more. Yes.
All right, here we go. Go Stugots, why do you think the Super Bowl has lost touch with that? Because you can see it in the logos, too. Remember when we used to have cool Super Bowl logos all the time?
Yes.
And now we've just gone to the bland variety. Maybe those two things are tied together of them trying to just make this as non-descriptive as
fun
possible.
league.
No, but media night used to be so much fun. You're right. You used to have like all different elements to it. Now it just seems pretty like everyone's just trying to get through it.
Right.
I'm not trying to get through Super Bowl week Radio Row. I want it to last forever. And like media night has morphed into that where it's just a bunch of nothing. There's nothing happening.
Really is.
And it's like the PR questions, It's like everybody gives the same answer. Let's make it interesting out
and
here.
every year I text Gojo, are you going to media night? He says yes. I end up not going and seeing him there because it's lost its luster for me.
Do you think in part of that some of the fatigue around this matchup in particular going into this week? Like, are you having a tougher time with that because it is the Chiefs again, because it is Chiefs-Eagles again?
I'm not, personally. I mean, the last time they played, it was one of the great Super Bowls we've ever seen, right?
I mean, we're in the business. We know somebody outside this business in the entertainment world who is pretty big, who I talked to and asked if they were coming
to
this.
You talked to Taylor Swift?
No, I did not.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
Somebody very big.
I think I know who.
And I said, are you going to be at the Super Bowl? And he said, no, I'm not coming.
Said I have to let her cry.
Kansas City Chief fatigue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Wow.
Kansas City Chief fatigue.
Wait, is this person an Eagles fan?
No.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
No, wow.
Do the Dolphins make him cry?
Yes.
Okay.
He's somewhere alone by a lamppost.
Yes, yeah.
Why did I not have that follow-up?
Exactly, yeah.
It's early in Super Bowl week.
Yeah, it is.
Trying to work
I'm
this
easing
out.
into it.
Stu, do you, like these youngsters, have a problem with Roman numerals?
Yes.
Do you really?
It's Super Bowl licks.
Super Bowl 59.
Right, but we've been it's
LIX.
licks. Yeah,
I mean,
it's licks.
Why, Mike? Well, Mike does short math better than anyone.
I know.
So you're telling me you're good with Roman numerals?
I mean,
that shouldn't be surprising.
I have
to
no
anyone.
issue with Roman numerals.
Right.
I think it looks kind of cool, except for 50. Obviously, the number 50 was very cool.
Kind of a giveaway 50,
yeah,
though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Feels a little cheap. That's kind of a layup. So we're going to make our layups in this process. Stu, were you surprised at all with everything you've mentioned? You're excited for Super Bowl week that the NBA kind of came in and kicked our door down day one?
They won a weekend.
They did?
I mean, how about that? It took no games being played. It took the Pro Bowl games being played.
Well, they lost Christmas Day, so they had to get another day.
You're exactly right. The NFL took that from them.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And they'll take the bye week if they want it back. They'll take
Yeah.
this entire week if they want it. The trade deadline is going up against Super Bowl week. Listen, that's a seismic deal. You rarely see that in the NBA.
Is that the biggest one you've ever seen? You've done this a long time.
I mean, yeah.
Well, it's the only one that had two All-NBA players traded
think
for
about
one
it.
another.
You have potentially two. You want to call Anthony Davis a top 15, top 20 guy, but you certainly have two top 20 guys. Luke is a top 10, right? Being traded. You'd never see that in the NBA. And so it's so interesting. But the thing for me, and I talked about this yesterday with Dan, is it seems like, yes, they're big stars, but the teams they were traded to, do you have any more confidence the Lakers are going to win an NBA title this year or next year than you did before they got Luka?
No, I think you
I
could.
don't.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they need a big man still.
Like we're excited about the trade. It's two big names, but really, in the end, what does it do for both teams?
Well, for the Lakers, it provides the future, because the future for the Lakers before this trade was the end of LeBron.
Right.
Right. It wasn't going to be AD. I mean, they were maybe going to put it on AD, but he's 32, and for a 32-year-old big man, that's like being 38.
Yeah.
I mean, so there was no future. It was year to year. LeBron win this year, win this year. Now they're looking past LeBron. So I do think that for the Lakers.
It is kind of funny, though, but both teams, like the Lakers, were, fourth in the Western Conference? And while we thought, it's probably still a long shot for them to actually win anything here, they decided to go the long-term approach. Dallas did the thing that few teams in sports ever do and say, hey, we've got our long-term future set.
Right.
Let's sacrifice that to try and make a push in the Western Conference with a team that, again, kind of like the Lakers were currently with AD. I look at the Dallas roster and I go, it could work, but in this Western Conference, it's still a long shot, and now you lost the 25-year-old that was supposed to carry you through the next decade.
That's the crazy thing. This is a 25-year-old generational player, and for whatever reason, and people should be asking themselves this question, the Lakers should be asking this question. Why did Dallas want to get rid of him? He bought a house there a week and a half ago.
Yeah, that's, I mean.
A $15 million house. He closed on it last week, and apparently he cried when he found out.
Right, so
I'm sure going through a home buying process sucks.
Yeah.
No, but Mike, this is Cleveland getting rid of LeBron at the age of 24 or 25 just because they don't want him anymore.
Well, that's what I had said. I mean, everybody says, the Lakers got to steal. Should the Lakers have been going, why is this too easy?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yes. Why is he available?
It's not like Dallas is Howie Roseman sitting here where, if he picks up the phone and calls you, you assume your wallet's already missing. He somehow pried that off of you here.
Yes.
I don't think Dallas has that reputation right now.
Yeah, Nico Harrison doesn't I don't think have that reputation.
Listen, and Nico Harrison put his job on the line.
Yeah, he
because
did.
if this does
Yes,
not
he
work
did.
out, Nico Harrison is going to be fired and might not get a job as a GM ever again.
He put his NBA reputation
Right.
on the line. Remember, this was the guy, now he has come out and disputed this, but this was the guy that was involved in the failed pitch meeting with Steph Curry, where they reportedly had Kevin Durant's deck. Now, again, he came out
Steph's
on point.
Name wrong.
He came out and said that did not happen. He disputes all that, but that's out there as part of the story attached to him. You get both of these, you're sunk.
And the thing with the Lakers is you have time to let this thing play out. If you're Nico Harrison, it has to work out the next couple of years. You were in the finals last year.
Yeah, you
can't go backward.
That's right. You got Anthony Davis. And Charles Barkley said he liked the trade for the Mavericks for the short term. Lakers, obviously, for the long term. You have to also ask yourself with Nico Harrison, why did he not shop Luka around? How did this stay so silent in 2025?
Because something is going to come out.
Jesse has a theory.
Okay, I like it.
Luka killed a man.
Oh,
There's
okay. Good Lord. He's a murderer.
I was going to say. By the way, that is Jesse Cofield throwing that around here.
Yeah.
Surprisingly not me.
Does not speak for the rest of the show in these
You know what? Be bold, right? Be bold. There's something crazy.
Can I kind of detach myself from her comments, distance myself, but still say that I like it? I like where I like it.
If anyone could pull that off, it is Stugots.
Okay, so he's not a murderer.
No, no.
But I do agree there is something going on. I don't know if the NBA needed a buzz. I don't know. Who knows? Because a lot of people don't trust the NBA. You guys both know that.
Yeah. Yes.
So did they need a buzz, force a trade? I don't know, but why would Dallas do that?
Why would Dallas?
Because you saw the whole thing online. They're trying to tank the franchise so they can move it to Vegas and build the casino.
I do think that there are interesting tentacles. I remember Pablo Torre did a great episode on Miriam Adelson, who took over as bought the team from Mark Cuban. I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't even realize Mark Cuban is not the principal owner there anymore.
And did you see what he said?
Oh, yeah.
He was like,
he would be in divorce
he'd be in divorce court.
The choice of keeping Luke or getting a divorce, he said, I'd be with my lawyer going through a divorce.
Serving up papers.
Exactly.
Wow.
So, people kind of getting caught up to speed on that, but who also don't know a lot about Miriam Adelson and a lot of the money that she has used to curry influence politically, the fact that her deceased husband was a casino mogul, all of these things politically in the area that are the constant reminder that in most franchises, when you're confused about what happens, as Lord knows Stugots uses a Jet fan, have plenty of experience with this. When the product keeps making inexplicably bad decisions and not working out, I always tell people, look up. It's the people on the second and third floor of the buildings that are usually the reason why these things are happening. And so I won't be stunned if we find out that there is something going on with ownership, because the rest of this from a basketball standpoint is utterly inexplicable.
Right, but even if there is a problem with ownership, even if it's dysfunctional at the highest level of that organization, there's a GM in place. There's a coach in place. And you have to ask yourself, why would they, right? Maybe ownership forced it. I understand what you're saying.
Maybe.
But why would those two, with their jobs on the line, essentially give away a 25-year-old player who could play in Dallas for the next 15 years?
And Nico did it with a smile on his face.
Yeah.
And Jason Kidd faked one.
Yes.
And Jason Kidd wasn't allowed to talk at the presser. I mean, maybe he was forced by ownership. I don't know. Listen, I'm an inch deep and a mile wide. I can't dive that deep into ownership and casinos and everything. I just think everything's for the good of the team, and I can't figure out why they traded Luke.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I know. My sweet chinchilla.
It's about money.
That's why we love him.
Yes.
I mean, yes. Nothing nefarious going on here.
No. Speaking of nothing nefarious here, God bless football here, Stugots, clanging and banging this week. I'm curious for you, because going into this one, the Chiefs are obviously a big story for a lot of reasons, the three-peat and all that, but I've heard some people having it bantered around here. Mahomes, if he goes out here and wins 3 in a row, accomplishes what he has this early in his career, how soon are we already talking about him staring eye to eye with Brady, if not being in position for more than that? Is this all it's going to take?
I think it's silly to think that if he wins a 3rd consecutive Super Bowl, while impressive, we should start making that comparison to Brady. That puts him at 4?
4.
I mean, that's Montana, right? So Brady won 7. We're talking about him winning 4, but I understand him doing something that no quarterback has ever done in the history of the NFL.
Yeah.
3 straight, like 3 straight, a 3-peat. So I understand all that. I get all that, but Brady has the trump card because the guy that beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl was Tom Brady with Tampa Bay.
That is true.
And so you have to ask yourself, would you rather have the 3-peat or rather beat the guy who's competing with you for greatest of all time? You beat him head-to-head in the Super Bowl. I'd rather beat him head-to-head than have the 3-peat.
Oh, I'd rather have the 3-peat, knowing I can still catch him in Super Bowl wins.
But he'll always have that trump card, to be like, but we went head-to-head and I beat you.
Right. The one time you played me in the Super Bowl, you lost to me in the Super Bowl.
Mahomes
and I was older.
Yeah.
Yes.
But in that Super Bowl, see, this is where we put too much on the quarterback. In that Super Bowl, Tampa Bay never would have been in the Super Bowl without their defense and what they did in the playoffs. Just like early on New England winning Super Bowls. I would rather take the 3-peat knowing Pat Mahomes is going to pass Tom Brady someday at being the GOAT. He's going to.
Okay.
And he's going to, and possibly
he's got to get to 8. I mean,
no, I don't think.
And I would say he even has to get to 9 because of the head-to-head.
I don't do the head-to-head because you got to look at the way they played and what led them there, and it was Tampa Bay's defense.
I would say I'd be interested when I should say, because it's going to happen at some point. He's going to have life without Andy Reid. That might be his version of Tom going to Tampa without Bill and getting that win. Even if Patrick stays, to do it without Andy Reid, who's been in lockstep with him this entire time, I think that would go a long way for a lot of people. That and coaxing Tom Brady out of retirement in the division for the Las Vegas Raiders to beat him there.
No, I understand what you're saying. What does it do for Andy Reid if they win 3 straight?
Oh, I've talked about Andy Reid.
Yes.
Andy Reid is going to pass Belichick for most wins in in the playoffs, and he is eventually needs 47 wins. He is going to pass Don Shula for all-time wins. Andy Reid is going to go down as statistically the greatest coach of all time.
I mean, this is pretty amazing. In Philadelphia, he's the guy who couldn't win the big game, and now he's going to go down as the greatest head coach of all time. And people ask whether or not Kelsey, they're going to retire after this. Why would you leave this quarterback? He is making everyone on his team the greatest of all time. It's unbelievable.
Super Week on DraftKings Network is brought to you by Tums. Whenever heartburn strikes, get fast relief with Tums. It's time to love food back again.
We are loving food back again around here at Radio Row. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., rolling along with Gojo and Golic here. It's day 2. We're still working out the kinks. We're warming up here, but thankfully we got great teammates to help us out with that. Thanks to Stugots for stopping by here. Made the run all the way over from Sirius XM to here and was pretty winded here.
He was winded.
Gerald McCoy joining us now here. Guy's a former high-level athlete here, so not winded at all coming up from a couple of stairs. Gerald, how you doing, man?
I'm excellent. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Yeah.
McCoy and Van Noy is
Yes,
the
sir.
show. People can check out over at Yahoo Sports. You and Kyle Van Noy, who's still going out here and doing his thing right now. So
Yes,
how's that
sir.
been so far, man? How's the partnership been with you guys?
It's been incredible, man. It was not a partnership that we planned.
Sure.
It happened organically. However, we hit it off immediately, and the chemistry's been incredible. And I think when you got like-minded people, defensive linemen, we don't like offensive linemen.
No. Yeah. I'm feeling the heat of the gaze right now.
We collectively don't like quarterbacks, and both play at a high level. So seen a lot, been through a lot. Both been on multiple teams, both married, both with children. It just worked. So yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Dad likes having the defensive reinforcement up here, and I feel like especially in this game this week, good business for the guys from the defensive pedigree talking about this one, especially for you. I mean, looking at the guys on the interior of the D-line in this game that are going to be going up, Chris Jones on one side, Jalen Carter on the other side here. What stands out to you with both of these guys when you watch and get ready for this matchup?
Chris has been here multiple times. Sorry, y'all. Chris has been here. Y'all asked me to do this while I'm on camera now. Don't get stuck.
Take your time.
No, it's fine. You have a problem that I don't in having to worry about hair when getting the credential off.
I know.
So there we go.
We're going to drop that on the ground. Yeah. Anyway, Chris has been here multiple times. And as great as we've seen Chris Jones be, having a Hall of Fame career, I can argue that the greatest game I've seen him play was his past AFC Championship.
Wow.
And it won't reflect in the numbers, and that's what makes for a great defensive lineman. What he did to the Buffalo Bills offensive line was demoralizing to grown men. And it can be demoralizing to an offense, period. Yeah. So offenses base what they do based off the flow of the game. They got the first 15, but then as the flow of the game, you may have game day adjustments. When you got a guy that was doing what he was doing, which he was taking the offensive linemen, tackles, guards, centers, and putting them 3 to 4 yards in the backfield every play just because, regardless of the outcome of the play. And if you go look at the stats, you say, well, what is Gerald talking about? Go watch the film.
Yeah.
Yep. You have to speed up the operation because of guys like this. When the running back is running everything side to side now on offenses, everything side to side, how do you kill that? With penetration. So when he's getting upfield doing this in the run game, now you have to adjust how you run the ball. Josh Allen is having to speed up what he does because he knows 95 is somewhere around him. The offensive coordinator has to change plays or adjust his play call because he knows, okay, I don't have that much time because of this guy. Yep. Regardless of if he's making the play or not, he's affecting the game. And that's what Chris Jones does. What makes him so great is he's a Swiss Army knife.
Yep.
You don't know where he's going to be or what he's going to do, how he's going to do it. He could be over the center. He could be over either guard. He could be over either tackle. The crazy thing about Chris Jones, he's listed as a D tackle, but most of his impact playoff plays, he's been at defensive end.
Right.
So, I've definitely mentioned multiple times that a defensive lineman, especially interior guys, doesn't show up in the stats. Mm-hmm. It's just disrupting the play, making the running back go east and west instead of north and south. Just what you said. He's also the only player in the league with over 25 pressures at 2 different positions, D tackle and out at edge as well. Yeah. The only one. So, he's a threat wherever he lines up. How about the other side, Jalen Carter, obviously younger, been in the league just a couple of years, but he is turning into an absolute train wreck as well.
You know what the craziest thing about Jalen Carter? He's a Pro Bowler and all-pro player, right? People who know the game can see him play and understand he don't even know how to play football yet. That's what's scary about him.
What do you mean by that?
He's going straight ahead.
What he does is all instinct and talent. when you see him cross a guard's face or cross an offensive lineman's face, that's just because he felt it and he just clubbed him. It's not because he's seen it coming. I played football at a high level for a long time. I know what it looks like. If he knew it was coming, he would have adjusted his alignment. He would have moved this way. You would have seen different things where he's making this happen. What he's doing right now is all instinct and talent. When he learns football, that's what's scary about people like him. When he learned, he's so physically gifted, he doesn't even know how great he can be. But when he does, at NFL honors every year, his name will be brought up. Whether he's winning it or a finalist for something, he's going to be one of them guys.
It really is amazing in that regard. And how much does having a coordinator then like Vic Fangio come over here? There's been a lot written about the way they changed their practice approach, the added emphasis on physicality when Vic came there. So how much does that voice in the meeting room matter for a guy like that who's trying to hit such a high ceiling?
Some people are coach and title only. Not everybody is a coach. Some people, they're listed as a coach, but that's all they're listed as. Coach takes important people from where they are to where they want to be. They put them in the best positions to be successful. The reason I know that's working, Zach Bond.
Man.
It's the first team All-Pro and the Defensive Player of the Year finalist where he was just a special teams guy and kind of a Kyle Van Noy's one of those guys. He got drafted. They tried to put him in a position to do what I want you to do. As a coach, don't put guys in position to do what I want you to do. Put them in position to do where they can maximize who they are to help everybody for the greater good. And that's what Vic Fangio has done at all positions. That's why you look at this defense, they went from this is the detriment of the team to this is why they'll win the Super Bowl. And that's what great coaches do. They take this player, find out who they are, what they can do. Let's put you in the best position to where you can be successful for all of us, not because this is where I need you, so this is where I'm going to put you. That doesn't work for people. So I think having Jalen Carter and understanding I can't put restrictions on this guy. Just let him go, and we'll play around him, and it's working.
Zach Vaughn, before he got to Philly, never had more than 30 tackles in a season. I mean, just an incredible turnaround at that Philly defense under Vic Fangio. What part of this game that isn't apparent, a Patrick Mahomes, a Saquon Barkley, do you think will play one of the more important parts in this game?
The Chiefs' offensive line. You got Patrick Mahomes, who's been hit and sacked more than he's been since he's been a starter. We just talked about Jalen Carter, but there's Nolan Smith, who's playing the best football he's played. Joe Tooney, who's an all-pro left guard, is at left tackle. So how they're able to – what they've been able to do all year is control the clock. And they have been playing dominoes is what I call it.
Okay.
5 here, 10 here. If we get 15, great. If we get 20, we're going to slam the table. But – we're going to nickel and dime you. We're going to nickel and dime you down the field. With this group, that's going to be tough because you can't coach speed, and that's what Philly has at every level. So Kurt Warner, my colleague at NFL Network, talked about when the Chiefs played the Pittsburgh Steelers, how Patrick Mahomes was getting the ball out fast. And he said that's done prior to the play. That's not something that's happening. Oh, we got a play call, get the ball out fast. That's what we're going to do. There's a technique to it. With this group, I'm interested to see if they'll be able to do that. Will they be able to run the ball on this group? Will they be able to hold up long enough when necessary with this group? Because the Chiefs have been great on third down. But now you got a group that's not going to give you that time. How will they be able to manipulate? Will the Chiefs O-line be able to hold up at the right time? We know what's going to happen because if they were going to be able to block, they would have been doing it, but they haven't been able to. It's when can they do it when it's necessary at a key point in the game.
You're right, because at some point there's going to be no hiding it. We saw the Chiefs did a great job staying ahead of the chains against the Buffalo Bills, moved the pocket a lot of RPO work with Mahomes to try and offset that. But at some point, like you said, you got to line up and play good on good big boy football. And is that critical moment going to be where they can get the win there? I want to flip it to the other side here because one thing this Chiefs defense has done really well and did against a Buffalo team that does something Philadelphia likes to do. They were able to stop them in short yardage on those quarterback sneaks a lot in the AFC Championship game. We know the Eagles are sort of the final boss of that with Jalen Hurts and that tush push. What did you see or have you seen from Kansas City's defense that's given them a better chance than most anybody else at stopping that play?
I won't say that they did stop it.
Yeah.
In actuality, from what we've seen. But how Buffalo ran it allowed them to stop it.
Okay, what about it?
You took a 6'6", 260-pound guy and stood him up and ran him lateral and then went forward. Instead of taking the Tom Brady mode, who's the greatest QB sneaker we've ever seen. Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback we've ever seen.
Sure.
But I don't think people realize, unless you're watching and paying attention to the game, that guy had a skill of QB sneaks. He knew how to do it. Tom Brady's a tall in stature. He knew, even with that, he had to get low, and he found a way to do it properly. Why would you take Josh Allen, who people are calling Josh Alien or Superman, and have him stand up and run sideways and allow this defense to come downhill? Philly's not going to do that. Jalen Hurts is going to put that foot back, and he's going to get low and go forward. So I think that Buffalo and how they ran it allowed Kansas City to stop it. That's not how Philly's going to run it.
Completely agree. When you go sideways on a quarterback
on a QB sneak,
and then
you can't
stand
do
up
it.
Straight,
Yeah,
it blows my mind. Do you buy into the passing drama that the Eagles have gone through this year?
At first, I didn't. But watching the playoffs, it can be a problem because Jalen Hurts doesn't have great pocket feet, okay? And when I say pocket feet, like Tom Brady, I keep coming back to this guy.
He's pretty good example.
I thought you didn't like quarterbacks.
Tom Brady's decent. You know, listen, I don't like him, but I respect him. You got to respect him.
That's fair.
So Tom Brady was great with step up, slide right, slide left, peek, but don't look. Peek, but don't look. Jalen Hurts is, if my first read is not there, I have to run to be able to see. You can't do that with this defense because they'll track you down. And Spags is going to draw something up to where he understands every time Jalen Hurts made a play with his feet, he had to roll to the right. When he went to the left, no success. Spags is going to know that. So with that happening, that could be an issue.
So that's how he's going to try and attack Jalen Hurts. What do you do on the other side with Pat? We've talked about him, big moments on this stage. He's a guy that's grown into the mental side of the game so well. What do you do as an opposing defense to try and limit him as best you can outside of, hey, you got to win in those big moments like you talked about before?
Well, shoot, Pat's not the problem. Andy Reid is.
Interesting.
At the end of when they closed that game out versus Buffalo, it wasn't what Patrick Mahomes did. He made easy throws. It was what Andy Reid was drawing up.
Sure.
That drive last year versus the 49ers, Patrick Mahomes, yes, he made the plays happen, but they were wide open plays. Andy Reid is drawing it up. So Patrick Mahomes, although throughout the game we've seen his knowledge grow, in these crunch times, it's how Andy Reid is drawing it up, and that's where the problem comes in. He knows how you've given him 1-2 weeks to plan for this, but then in crunch time, you've given him all game to be able to manipulate your defense. And Pat just is the perfect operator. So, they got to find a way to try and put Andy Reid in a bad spot. Because
good luck with that.
Kidnap Andy Reid.
That's the tough part.
Kidnap Andy Reid. All right, well, you guys, instead of kidnapping Andy Reid, tune in to McCoy and Van Noy again. Gerald McCoy, Kyle Van Noy on Yahoo Sports, taking fans inside the locker room from insightful conversations like this about the best game in the world. Gerald, we appreciate the time this morning, man. Thank you. Enjoy Super Bowl week. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
Thanks, fellas. Thank you. Thank you so
much.
Early in the week.
Yeah, no, it is early. We are all grinding through it here at Super Bowl week. Coming up next, we will get to more of a look ahead at the big game and some of the other keys besides stopping that guy named Andy Reid, his counterpart Nick Sirianni, and the rest of the great players and coaches in this game. Back after this at Radio Row, it is Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. Gojo and Golic here on the DraftKings Network.
Super Week on DraftKings Network is brought to you by Tums. Whenever heartburn strikes, get fast relief with Tums. It's time to love food back again.
All right, and we have already had heartburn striking plenty in the early portion of this week here as Gojo and Golic is live from Radio Row, site of Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. And we know part of the New Orleans experience is going out and getting some grub. And thanks to the folks at Tums, we got to come down here and take you on a little tour through the city of some places that people roll into town you should be checking out and making sure you get a little bite from here. You've already seen breakfast as we got loaded up on some beignets. Now it's lunchtime, and it wouldn't be lunch in New Orleans without a po' boy. Parkway Bakery and Tavern was the place that we stopped by to try and go check out one of the most quintessential sandwiches you'll pick up here in New Orleans. Take a look, a listen, and maybe a smell if it comes through the screen.
Oh my God, it's so juicy. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo Eats New Orleans, presented by Tums. I'm Mike Golic Jr., here in the Big Easy, searching for some of the best food around ahead of the big game. New Orleans is foodie heaven, as we know, but sometimes it can leave you saying, oh, hell no, to unwanted symptoms like heartburn. So, when heartburn strikes, get fast relief with Tums. It's time to love food back again. And if you're in New Orleans, why not try the sandwich that everybody here loves, the po' boy. That's why we're here at Parkway Bakery and Tavern in Mid-City to go ahead and try one out ourselves. Let's go eat. I am here with Justin Kennedy, GM here at Parkway Bakery and Tavern here, serving up the best po' boys in New Orleans. And we appreciate you having us here. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm psyched that y'all are here to come be a part of what we do. I say it's culture you can eat.
What's the secret to a great po' boy? What do you got to do to make it
Well,
sing?
the secret to the po' boy, it's New Orleans French bread. If you gave our bread and gave it to a Frenchman, he'd laugh at it. It's crusty on the outside, but when you cut into it, it's airy like cotton candy.
What's like the tried and true? What's the most ordered version of the po' boy you guys
So
get
if
here?
you go to classics, every po' boy shop is judged on their roast beef and judged on their shrimp. Parkway has a sandwich called a surf and turf. This ain't the steak and lobster. Throw that out the window. Here at Parkway, it's that slow roasted beef I'm telling you about. Lay that on the French bread and lay to bed that fried shrimp. It'll knock the tongue out your mouth. Blue collar surf and turf,
It
baby.
feels like it's time to eat right now. Can I try one of these
Let's
things?
get it, man. All right.
Oh, heavens.
Lettuce, tomato, mayo, pickle, and that toasted New Orleans French bread. Dressed up, the lingo is dressed. Now threw some extra. Everybody loves cheese fries, but when you add that gravy and roast beef to them, it's like a shepherd's pie. And then threw a little dessert in.
I'm getting sleepy just looking at this.
Oh yeah, you got it. Oh look, if you don't want to mess up your shirt, you got to get those elbows on the table and get a little bit more air. There you go.
Wow. The way you described that bread could not have been more spot on.
There's no pull.
No.
It's just, you just go right in and everything breaks.
This is some of the best bread I've ever had. Justin, this is incredible. I'm excited to dig in to all of this here and then not move for the rest of my time in New Orleans.
Hey, well, that's what we're here for. Enjoy.
Beautiful. Thanks so
All right.
I love dressed up fries. Sexy fries. These are sexy fries. You look at the load that we've got on this fork right now. It requires, that's a 4-finger load. There we go. Wow. I don't think there's a savory product you could put that beef on that I wouldn't enjoy it on. The final boss, a little bit of rum cake. Look at the cakes on this bad boy. That's about a solid, I'd say full inch thick. This would be a thick 6. This rum cake wears a number, I would say, at worst in the 90s. Not the 80s, we don't really like that on D-linemen. Oh my God, I have been saved. That was a kiss from an angel. It's heard a lot of inside jokes and would love to be in one day, and now it's in you. Waxing poetic about this sweet cake. I've never been so happy to receive someone. Thank you to Parkway Bakery and Tavern for all the hospitality. No doubt the go-to spot for po' boys here in the Big Easy. So if you're coming down here for the Super Bowl, Mardi Gras, or anything else, make sure you stop on by here. And if you're experiencing some discomfort afterwards or in need of some fast relief, try Tums Gummy Bites, featuring a soft and easy-to-chew format for the easy, fast relief of occasional heartburn, acid indigestion, sour and upset stomach. It's available at Amazon, Target, major outlets nationwide. It's great. These po' boys are great. New Orleans is great. I love it here. Let's stay forever.
This is not hyperbole, what I'm about to say to you. That rum cake, in all the stuff that we're doing around Gojo Eats New Orleans, that is the single best bite I had the entire time. It is amazing. It is so soft and rich and delicate.
It looks just so plain, and boy, oh boy.
The icing on it is like a reduced down rum, so you get a little bit of the burn from the rum here. Jesse, I see you a little bit in disbelief. It is the best bite I had.
No, I don't. I'm not denying your claim. I'm just surprised at how you managed to make this whole thing with food so sexual. There's like a sexual undertone to all of these.
He's really
it's
good
food.
at that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like you were getting really freaky.
Sexual food.
Tums didn't know what they were getting themselves into.
They're like, wait, do we need a rating on this?
They were like, oh my God.
Why does he keep unbuttoning his pants?
Here's again why I'm impressed with you, and you're my son, and I appreciate what you do. It's not you sexualizing the food. Okay?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, okay. It's most people who eat and have to speak while eating will take a little bite so they can enunciate their words. You don't care about enunciation of words or if you can be understood. You care about putting the biggest bite in your mouth and then choosing to speak, which I respect the hell out of.
Yeah, it's like you have no shame. It's
None.
impressive.
Which is perfect.
You know what it is, and we talk about this all the time in the context of football, is you get to a big game like the Super Bowl, and everything around it is different. But once you get between those white lines, it's just a game again. Once I sit down at the table, fork and knife, food in hand, it's every meal I've had in my life. All of my training has led to that moment. So it's not different just because there's cameras there. That disappears, and I'm just alone at my table enjoying a meal with a couple of friends around. That's really what it is. You have to normalize the experience as quick as possible and try and forsake content for the name of my fat ass getting more food in my mouth.
So while we are all like visitors here for the week and we'll go out and we'll try the local fare like I did yesterday, walked in the French Quarter, had local food. It was phenomenal. I wonder, and I don't know this again because I never had to prepare for a Super Bowl, would the players indulge? Because they have basically eaten and prepared their whole season.
No.
So, but now you come in, and would you introduce such a different food to your gut while you're preparing for obviously, again, for the Chiefs, the biggest game again in your career, but would you take the chance of eating a certain way all year, coming to New Orleans, and listen, this food is heavy, this food is gravy, this food is spicy. Would you introduce that?
No, you know that there's the chef that traveled with the team, and they're preparing the meals they've had all year.
But you know they're going to have free time. Would you go out and would you
say this,
have a bunch of jambalaya and such?
If I'm a backup early in the week, yes. Like if I'm someone who's not going to play, and we were out at dinner, I'm not going to name drop anyone, but I saw a couple of guys that were backups on the roster that were out at dinner, and it's at a nice place. You can get good food there. But I would say if I'm a backup and a guy who's maybe not even going to be dressed out on here, was in the end of the roster, I'd go probably enjoy that during the week. If I'm a guy that's got to play the game, no. I would caution everyone because it doesn't take much. Like I came down here in the offseason in 2015 to go through the Saints offseason program. Had a bad back, kind of knew I was probably going to be a camp body here. I was on the tail end of my effort of like a 3-year window to try and make it happen. And so I remember going around to the vets, and I was like, I'm at least going to enjoy myself down here. So I asked them, what's their favorite restaurants? I made a list, and I would go check off 1 or 2 a weekend. I was 315 pounds for the first time in my life by the time we hit August that year. Fattest I've ever been. I learned what triglycerides were because my doctor told me I had too many of them. It's blood fat. I had fat blood by the end of my summer down here. So all I'm saying is, boys, it doesn't take long. Be very careful. Arm yourself with knowledge.
Yeah, definitely. don't do that
Jesse's
if you're
disgusted.
Yeah, don't do that if you're a player and you're listening to this. Just eat what you've been eating.
Yeah,
lean proteins. You know,
and I could see you be tempted by it because it's great food, but man, you don't want to upset the
remind
innards.
yourself you can come back and visit.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Exactly. I'm not saying I'm Zion Williamson, but I'm saying I understand the things that Zion was going through. Coming up next, we will wrap up the show here for day 2, Gojo and Golic, with Funny Marco coming up next. All right. Super Bowl week means we do things a little bit differently around here. Normally, we finish up the show the way we always do, this, that, and the third with 3 quick stories. But when we got a chance to visit with some special guests, we got to take that chance. And we're pumped today here. Comedian and Chief superfan Funny Marco, kind enough to join us. He's got a new show on Bleacher Report called Marco is Off the Ball. So check that one out here. His YouTube channel is great stuff here. And an exciting week for you, a man with, I believe, multiple Chief Super Bowl tattoos, correct?
Yeah.
So are you planning on adding to the fold? Have you already added to the fold this week?
I got already got the one done this year.
Really?
Yeah, I got it done.
So you got this Chief Super Bowl tattoo done, like how long ago?
I got it done before our first playoff game.
Wait, so you have the championship winning tattoo on you for this year?
The pre-tattoo. Where is it?
Where'd you put it? It's on my leg. I'll show y'all. I'll give y'all a clip of it.
Okay.
I got it.
Wow.
Yeah, I got it.
So you've got how many Chief Super Bowl tattoos?
I got 3.
3. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
All
this
right.
this one's preemptive here. So all right, so walk me through the origin of your Chiefs fandom here. How'd you come to be a fan of this team that's on the cusp of a 3rd straight tattoo?
It started off with Trent Green.
Okay.
So that's when I started watching Dante Hall, Trent Green, Tony Gonzalez. So I'm from Kansas City, so that was like a big thing. That's all we got in Kansas City.
Sure.
Besides barbecue.
Yeah.
That's it. So,
Good barbecue.
yeah, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
That's all we got. So that was that. And when we got Patrick Mahomes, I was excited. I was the guy that when it come out on Madden, I always got like the rookies and I boost them up the ratings and everything. So I was always like making them like adjusting stuff already. So
what did you think of, since you've been a fan through the start of Mahomes, when they got rid of Alex Smith, who led them to the playoffs, to start Patrick Mahomes?
It was tough at first, and I like that they let Patrick Mahomes learn from him because he was a great quarterback. He didn't make mistakes, but he didn't like to throw it deep, you know? So for him to have Tyreek Hill and he had deep threats, he just always played it safe. So when Patrick came, he was just like, I want to risk it. So it was like a big difference.
I asked this earlier in the show when we were going to talk about having you on, and I just have to ask, Funny Marco, isn't that a lot of pressure?
Yeah, it is.
To call your shot right away.
To say I'm going to be funny?
Yeah. No, well, it started in school. So when you like in school and then when you just like learn how to be funny, it's just there and people give it to you. So it was just people like, oh, yeah, he's funny. Like, that's funny. And then I just put with Funny Marco. And I didn't know I'd be this big because if so, I would just go by my first and last name because it's more important to go by your first and last name.
Right.
When I start turning 50, I don't want people calling me that.
It's a lot harder to show up to the barbecue at 50. You're like, oh, there's Funny Marco.
Will you eventually phase it out?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. I'm working on the brand to do that. But you got to earn that respect. You know, like every comedian has like Kevin Hart, Eddie Griffin. Like anybody like has a first and last name. So I'd rather have that respect over like the funny part. So I want to drop it.
So do you want us to drop it here on the show right
Yeah,
now?
we could. Yeah, we could drop it.
Okay.
So
you're starting the transition to just Marco.
So do you want to look down the camera and reintroduce yourself to the nation right here?
Yeah, let's do it. How you guys doing? This is Marco Summers, and we're live in the den with the one and only
Gojo and Golic.
That's it.
There we go. All right. Marco Summers.
Marco Summers.
All right, there we go. God, I feel like we are part. Do you feel unburdened right now? You look lighter.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, this is incredible.
Good. It just feels right.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, y'all funny too.
Well, that's the other thing.
We're just morons. We're not actually
That's
funny.
the other thing. When
we're just fat. It's a coping mechanism.
Do you find when you do interviews with people and they're doing it with a comedian that they try and be funny, like we try and out funny you, which is dumb to do. We just sound ridiculous.
No, sometimes it's just energy. Funny is a connection together. You know, like when you're in a relationship with your girl and y'all together and y'all just have that energy. Like she has her funny, you have Jordan. Y'all just bring it together. You know,
the banter.
Yeah, that's it. It's like a band. Like you got the guitar, you got the drums, and make it a band. You know, so just
funny is a connection together is a
I like that. That's a great line.
Yeah.
That's you know what that is. That's a Marco Summers line.
Yeah.
Funny Marco wouldn't have come up with that 10 minutes ago here. Marco Summers now, though, getting ready to rock your world. That's a completely different one there. So whatever name you've been under, you mentioned you're from Kansas City, and you said this is all you have. How much has this Chiefs dynastic run sort of changed the city? Like when you go back and you're around there, how much has changed because
we got
of
a new airport.
And the airport's nice.
Let me tell you, thank God, because it was awful.
That old one sucked.
I don't want to dump on your hometown or anything, but I didn't like that airport before.
It was like you was turning yourself into jail.
It was.
It was so dark.
That perp walk through security
dark.
in there.
But the only thing that was good, right, when you get off, you get right to your car. So, like, it was no,
True.
That was the only thing that was good. But other than that, it's great. So we got that. And I feel like he has brought a lot of, like, money to the city. And a lot of people are moving there, too. They are rebuilding. So, and he has playgrounds. Patrick Mahomes has built playgrounds. So, yeah, it's like it's really changing. He changed a lot. Like,
so has he changed it more, or now has Taylor Swift
I was going to say, you got Taylor Swift.
Changed more? That feels like another big come up for KC, man.
Are you a Swiftie?
Yeah, I am.
All right, there we go.
Yeah,
Did you go see her when she was on tour at all?
No, I didn't get to go see her.
Okay.
She sell out so quick. It's just like the tickets are like that. So, yeah, but like Swifties are really good. We needed that. I'm glad that she's there. And after we win the Super Bowl, he's going to propose to her, and he's going to retire.
Oh,
wow. Okay.
Prediction time.
There we go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, from the man that's already got the Super Bowl tattoo for this year, I feel like you've seen something that we have not. So
yeah.
Oh, you think he's going to walk away?
He wants
is.
2
And
rings.
Saquon is going to get under 100 yards. He's not getting 100 yards.
So you think that's the key to the game?
that's for
Because
sure.
right now, I was going to ask how worried you were about Saquon in this
Not
squad.
worried. I feel like if you think about it, if you go into any Super Bowl and everybody's worried about that one thing, it gets stops all the time. You know, so I think when we had Jamal Charles, he was the best running back, and then the coach shut him down. He didn't get nothing. If you remember, like anybody that you think that is a threat,
right,
they shut it down. So I don't know if y'all besides Tom Brady, who live up to the hype, and Patrick Mahomes, usually they get shut down. Like, it's no, like, the hype man.
But if you do shut down Saquon, the game's in Jalen Hurts' hand. And 2 years ago, Jalen actually outplayed Mahomes in the Super Bowl, even though Kansas City
And then what
won.
happened after he
played?
That's a fair point.
Yeah, as I was saying it, I knew what the ending was. So
I'm going to ask y'all a question. Is Saquon a better player or McCaffrey?
Ooh. Saquon's a better runner. McCaffrey's more versatile.
Yeah.
Because McCaffrey lines up in slot at wide receiver. But Saquon's a better pure runner, which this offense needed.
So I'll pin you down, though, further from that. In the prime of their career, you can only have one. Are you taking the Christian McCaffrey that came over in the trade to San Francisco or Saquon Barkley from this season?
I'm going to say McCaffrey. I just say that, and the Chiefs shut down him, and that was scary. So the fact that they shut him down, I feel like he can get shut down.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It's an easier formula, and then now all of a sudden you've got the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands. He's proven he can do that before. But to your point on the other side, shutting that down, that comes from the head man here, Andy Reid, and what he's meant to this city here. What impresses you most about the way that he handles all of this at the helm?
He stay calm. I never seen him upset. He looks the same all the time. Like, and I love that. On the sideline, they just know how to stay focused on the game. You know, some coaches taking their hat off when they don't get a call. He just stay there and he look at that menu. Remember they used to say it was like a Waffle House menu?
Yes. Yeah. Which, I mean, there's not nearly as many fights going on around that even on an NFL field than the actual Waffle House menu.
So even though you've already predicted the Chiefs will win, what worries you most from the Eagles team?
Just the state when they lose. I just want them to be okay down there in Philly.
They eat poop when they win.
Yeah.
Man.
Like, I can't imagine what's going to happen if they
City of
lose.
Philadelphia.
No, it was so funny. So last year when they lost, I had to go down there. I had to go down there and host the event, right? I was quiet. I did not say nothing. It was so dark in the city. Like the radio, it felt like a zombie town when they lost. So I didn't say I was from Kansas City. I didn't say nothing.
If for some reason Kansas City loses this game, will you have to cover up or get rid of that tattoo?
They're not going to lose.
He could just laser off the last number.
The last number and put the next year number?
It's just the spirit. And the fact we haven't lost in the Saints Stadium not one time since Patrick started.
Home field advantage on the road.
Yeah, so I feel like this is that. So, like, with the Raiders, when we was down there in Vegas, we always won there. So, it's the area. And then we went to Tampa. We weren't really good there. We lost there. Like, Tampa's not us.
Not your place.
All right, there we go. Got the bad juju out for that one. All positive vibes here from Marco Summers. A.K.A. Funny Marco. Again, Marco is off the ball. New series of Bleacher Report you can check out on YouTube there. I'm sure it's going to be a busy week for you around here. So, Marco, thank you for joining us today, man. We really
thank y'all for having me. I like y'all energy here. Y'all made me laugh.
Good.
We're going to keep that same energy rolling tomorrow. Got another fun one. Jeff Fisher, Bomani Jones, Cam Jordan from the hometown Saints, all going to join us as we roll into a Wednesday on Gojo and Golic, live from Radio Row in New Orleans for Super Bowl 59. Talk to you tomorrow.